Oh!
Hey friends, welcome to this week's class of Dead Funny University. I'm having a bit of a moment, primarily because this creep is behind me, and I'm very uncomfortable about it. I am your host and fellow student, Kelsey, and our Scare Master today is Chris. We are talking about the Conjuring Universe. This is our second episode. If you didn't watch the first one, go back and watch that, because it's going to kind of lay the groundwork, and there's a lot that Chris and I chatted through that you're not going to get anywhere else. So
Correct.
Go back and watch it, and then come back here.
Yes.
But if you are here on the second episode, we are talking about The Nun. Chris, I am so excited. Educate me. I'm here.
All right. So let's just jump right into it. We kind of talked about The Nun a little bit in the first episode. Let's go ahead and just jump right in here. Okay.
Get her out from behind me. Jesus Christ.
Alrighty.
Oh, good. Now she's next to me. That's so nice of you.
Oh, man, I love it. So, as I kind of talked about, and you'll see this is the actual movie. These are clips from the actual movie The Conjuring, where she has plagued Lorraine throughout her entire life. And what I really like up there in the top right, because I told you Ed was a painter, and he would paint things that he would see in dreams that he would have after they would do investigations. He actually had a dream about the nun and was painting it, and Lorraine came out and said, "Where did you see that from?" This has been somebody that had been haunting her for years, and Ed just woke up and painted her one day.
Oh,
so
shit.
This is somebody who has haunted their family, and there's other cool little tidbits that I've hidden in the PowerPoint to see if maybe you pick up on it as we go along. You probably won't. It's probably...
I'm here to learn,
yeah,
dude. If you want to teach me something, fucking teach me.
It's just more along the lines of, I don't know when they actually do it. But it's stuff that where I've done it so that way we can go back and you can actually see, holy shit. Because it is one of those things, after you watch the series, there's certain movies that's worth, going back and watching. One of the best examples that I can prove is, Squid Games. Where, you get to the end of Squid Games and you find out, the old man was running it the entire time. So you go back and watch the entirety of Squid Games and you see, every time it was a life or death situation, he wasn't actually part of the death part. So, the red light, green light, the robot, whenever it analyzed everybody that was moving, it never picked up his body whenever it would scan through. You can actually see that. When they were doing the tug-of-war and they were all chained to the rope, if you go back and look, his chain isn't actually connected to the rope. There's little things that you can go back and be like, oh my god, and it was right in front of you the entire fucking time. So that's kind of cool. They kind of do that a little bit.
And if you'd seen it, you would have assumed, that was some, production mistake. That wasn't actually interesting.
Yep. What's really cool and what I really appreciate about the series and why it's such a big deal to me as far as a horror scene or a horror movie is concerned is because, and this is the movie that really proves it, is the scares don't come from where you think they're going to. They did a really good job of here's the glaring obvious, and then bam, this is gonna fucking happen. And I actually have a little GIF of one of the fucking scenes that I'm talking about, so you'll see that here in a little bit. But this movie by far was one of the best that did it. But yeah, they just do it throughout the entire series where it's it's not gonna come where you think it's gonna come from, and then it comes later. Yes.
So I have an initial question. I'm looking at this center picture, and that's not the nun. That's someone holding the a painting or a picture of some kind of the nun, and it doesn't exactly match the painting that he's doing up there. The mouth is all different.
Correct.
So, is that intentional? Did you is that a hint of the thing you're including for me?
No.
Okay.
Nope, but that is a scene that you will watch, and you'll see exactly why that looks different. So but that's not until we get to The Conjuring. So that's a little ways away. But yeah, so like I said, times that she's literally just kind of just plagued Lorraine. So here's our cast. Now, the cool part is the chick that plays the nun, Sister Irene, that's actually the chick that plays Lorraine's younger sister. Which is pretty cool.
So why did they recast her that way?
What do you mean?
So that's a woman that plays both the nun and her younger sister.
No. Lorraine, the woman here.
Yeah.
The person that plays this nun is the actor's younger sister.
Oh, okay.
They're related. Yes.
Okay, so the actresses are related. I thought you were trying to say something else.
No.
Okay, so is that hinting at some kind of familial connection? Okay, got it.
I just picked it up the other day when I was watching it, and I literally was typing in something about the actress. I can't remember what it was, and it was all by the way, her sister plays in the nun. And I was like, who the fuck was her sister? And I was like, sister, she's the main character. How did I not know this? But they don't look alike to me, at all. But I mean, yeah. Not to mention, there's a big age gap.
Shape.
There's a big age gap.
See, you say that every time I hear about somebody with a gigantic age gap in their family, I'm like, okay, one of you was an oops baby. Which one was it? No, her face shape is the same.
That's
If
fair.
you look at that, that's accurate.
And then we have Father Burke, which the actor that plays him is super awesome. First time I ever saw him was in Weeds. He did a great job in that show. And then he was in this, and I was like, let's fucking go. Bonnie Aarons as Valak the Nun. So Valak is the name of the demon, obviously. But Bonnie Aarons, there's not a lot of makeup there. I'm just going to throw that out there. To actually go see what this actress looks like in real life, like, she looks like that without sharp teeth and a white face. Like, they didn't really do any kind of like facial construction as far as makeup and stuff goes, which is kind of interesting. But apparently that's what she loves. She's been in tons of horror movies because she has that face.
Yeah, there's a few. I say this with nothing but respect.
Oh yeah,
There
for
are
sure,
a few
for
women
sure.
that have commented on the fact, like, this face makes me a villain forever. I have a villainous face, and
Mm-hmm.
like those women are all like delightfully, happily married, and they have kids, and like there's nothing but goodness in their lives.
Yep.
But their face shape is one that Hollywood is typically looks at and is like, you are our
Typecast.
villain.
You're typecasted
Yeah.
now. Done.
Exactly.
Yep.
She's gorgeous.
Yep.
Prettier than I have ever been or will ever be. Maybe not in that particular screenshot, but like, gorgeous woman.
And then we have our lovely guy, Frenchie. And Frenchie is actually a way bigger connection to the entire series than a lot of people think whenever they first watch The Nun. And until you actually watch The Conjuring, then you see why he's such a big connection. But we'll get into that as we go through The Nun. So, moving on.
Bonnie Aarons is in Princess Diaries. She is the bitch in Princess Diaries, like the bitchy lady that wants to become queen. In case anybody is curious, same person. Continue.
Same person. So we have the Abbey of Saint Carta back in Romania in 1952. I got a nice screenshot here for you so you could see the entirety of the Abbey. What is really cool, and what we're going to go into here in a minute, as you see all these crosses and stuff like this, that it was actually damaged in the war. There was a war that happened, and it was actually damaged in the war. So all those holes and stuff are from, like, fucking mortar shells and stuff being dropped directly onto the Abbey and shit. Like, it got fucked up during the war. I don't know what war, if it was a real war or one they just made up for the fucking story's sake. Once again, Hollywood, I didn't look that far into it. I was way more interested in the paranormal aspect of this movie than the historical facts of whether or not this Abbey actually exists or not. But, yeah. So, but yeah, 1952 Romania.
I'm totally Googling that right now. So sorry. Just so you know, that's happening. Continue.
So, what we see here is on the right, we have he was a duke that actually owned the Abbey before it was an Abbey. And he was into human sacrifice, as you can see all these bodies that are hanging up in the air and draining blood down, to summon Valak, the demon itself. And he was almost about to do it until a group of crusaders came in and slaughtered him and all of his fucking evil people. They closed up the hole that he was opening to hell with the actual relic called the Blood of Christ, which we will see a little bit later on. What we see over here on the left is how the movie actually starts, which is somehow the evil has started to seep out. Not fully formed yet, but enough that it's actually going through and terrorizing people. That nun holds the key to where the blood of Christ is held. And she is the last nun in the Abbey because the others have died to the nun. And she sacrifices herself in order for the nun to not be able to then take her soul and then have the key to get to the blood of Christ.
Two questions.
Yes.
So what we see on the right and what we see on the left, like the image with the bodies hanging down, that's meant to be historical. Mm-hmm. Where the way this story is told, the one with the nun holding the key is modern day ish.
Yep.
When this thing, okay.
Yep.
Okay. Now, does the movie portray this as the actual blood of Christ?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
So, moving on. So, what we see here, well, actually, let's take a second here. So, as I said, so she ends up jumping off. She hangs herself. She ends up dying. Where our buddy Frenchie comes into play is that his job is to bring food deliveries to the Abbey from the little town that's next to the Abbey. Now,
okay,
horses won't go all the way up to the Abbey because it's haunted and horses can sense danger and they're like, fuck that, you walk. So the horses will go about halfway, and then there's a spot where like all horses just refuse to move past. Like they just do not, they will not go up there. And
Okay.
so the only person who's willing to do it because he gets the money for it is Frenchie. So he travels up there, brings the food. He never sees anybody. There's an ice house, is what it's called, that's connected to the abbey where he goes and he leaves the deliveries. The nuns come out into the ice house, grab the deliveries whenever he's gone, and therefore they never have to leave the castle because that's kind of a fucking thing. After they killed that guy and took it over, that's whenever they made it an abbey to be able to keep the evil contained and made it holy ground. It was the point. Which is why back in this picture you see all these crosses all over the place. They're trying to make it a holy ground. Which, as Frenchie and them get there, what's kind of interesting is that she points out the crosses, Sister Irene, and Frenchie goes, I don't think it's so much about keeping evil out so much as it's about it's keeping all the evil in.
Okay, so my only challenge to you, and it's not really a challenge to you, it's a challenge to whoever the heck directed this. I went to a Catholic high school and learned quite a bit about Catholicism. I then went to a Lutheran college and learned quite a bit about Lutheranism. So I've had probably 16 plus classes in some kind of Bible literature for, to get me to this point. And so hearing what you're saying about like, we've got all these crosses to make this holy ground, we've got these graves to make this holy ground, like that's not how holy ground works, and that's not how you establish holy ground. In the church tradition, not necessarily biblical tradition, which doesn't ever touch on holy ground.
I don't think that was done by the church. I think that was done by the citizens of the town. They put up all those crosses because it was quote unquote holy ground, not the church.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Doing that
Thank
now.
you.
Their thing
I'm
is
hearing
going
this
around.
And I'm like,
yeah, they're praying around the clock. They got other shit going on versus being out there making wooden crosses and hitting them to the ground. No.
Yeah, that's not how you're gonna make holy ground. But okay.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Yep,
that explains a lot. Continue.
So the reason why, so we had the nun that made the sacrifice, and then once that was done, Frenchie finds her because he goes up to make his delivery and he sees her hanging. Whenever he goes up, her body drops, and then that's when the movie kind of starts. And it starts out on Sister Irene given a class. So she is a nun who has not taken her vows yet, which is why we see her back here in all white, basically.
So she's a novitiate. Yeah,
yes.
I guessed, but thank you.
So for the people who didn't do anything,
go to Catholic school and then Lutheran college. Yeah,
exactly. So she hasn't taken her vows yet, so she's not like a nun. She's on her way. So basically, the Vatican hears about the nun, and they're wondering whether or not this abbey is still considered holy ground, if there's kind of any kind of paranormal thing going on here, and if that great evil that they quote unquote stood away a long time ago, whether or not that's actually creeping back through. Which is when they send Father Burke here to go pick her up to take her with him to Romania. Now, the interesting part is that they told Father Burke that she was a nun, and the reason why she was going was due to her background in Romania. She's never been to Romania, and she's also not a nun. So the father's just like, well, the Vatican works in mysterious ways, but if it picked you for a reason, and we're just going to go with that. So then they go to Romania. That's when they meet Frenchie, or they ask around, find out about Frenchie. Frenchie's the one that tells them that he goes up there. The interesting part is that Frenchie put the body in the ice house to keep it safe from the elements.
Makes sense.
Whenever Father Burke goes up to the steps, the blood is still wet, and it's been months and months, black and wet. So that's where it's like, okay, so there's something going on here that's not right.
So what I'm hearing from you is just from a scientific perspective, because guess what? I've studied that to some degree. We have a body that is not decomposing in an ice house, and the blood is wet at this point.
At the outside.
All three of those.
The outside from where she killed herself versus being in the ice house. Yeah.
Oh,
it's not even coming from her. Correct.
Okay, so the blood outside. Now, hanging yourself doesn't produce a lot of blood, so where did the blood come from? Like the eyes, or
because birds had been feasting on her at this point. Yeah, she's like missing
doodles.
like half her face here. You see like skeleton and shit. One of her eyes are almost popping out. Yeah, she's been there for a while.
Okay, so when he comes to deliver the thing, she's been dead for minimum a day to give like the creatures time to like find her and find meat. We are meat for the birds at the end of the day. That's how they see us.
They're just
Okay.
waiting for us to die. Yes.
Okay, so whatever came out of her, that's interesting because bodies don't bleed very much because you don't have a heart pushing it out of you. So that's
Correct.
interesting.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why they thought it was interesting as well. So
Hmm.
they go into the ice house, and the father starts to move, and Frenchie stops him. And he's like, what? And he's all like, I told you I left her in here, but that's not how I left her in here. He left her laying down. She was sitting straight up. So we
Oh,
start getting into
okay.
that little bit paranormal stuff. Yeah, the scary movie aspect. Anyways, the Hollywood. So he gets over to the body, looks and sees that she has this key in her hand, and he takes it. He doesn't know what it's for yet, but he sees his key. Obviously, she was holding it, so it was something important. So he takes it, and he goes, "We need to give her a proper burial." They give her a proper burial. So now we get to the part where we're going to start dealing a lot more inside. And so the weird thing about this abbey is, and I kind of already gave that away a little bit here, but that was the last nun. But there are still nuns everywhere inside this abbey. There's also an abbess who is kind of guarding the gate to the abbey to let people know, like, hey, you know, we're about to take our vow of silence. You can't come in here because Father Burke wants to go in and interview all the nuns and figure out, you know, what their thought is on the abbey. You know, he needs to do this for the Vatican. And she's all like, well, you can't do that. You know, you can't come in. He's like, well, to be honest, if you send me home, the Vatican's going to send some more people, and I can't promise they'll be as diplomatic as I am. And so she's like, whatever. Well, we're about to go into our vows. Da 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 da. Very old lady. You can't see her face. Very old lady, just from the way that she sounds. And she's like, we're about to take our vow of silence. Blah 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 blah. So Frenchie leaves, but Father Burke and Sister Irene are allowed to stay in lodging that's next to the abbey or part of the abbey, just not directly in with the nuns. So the interesting part is the movie immediately picks up from here. Like we're in the abbey, shit's getting real. So the nun, if obviously the person behind everything that's going to be going on as we start talking, does a very good job of trying to keep them two separated. It's very important that I say that before I go to this next scene. So in this next scene, which you'll see some of the scary scenes going on here, where we have Father Burke buried alive up there in a coffin and the nun in the coffin with him. And we also have, that's what I was talking about, the scare scene. That nun pops up behind her and she looks back and you think that's going to scare her. And then they just come out of fucking nowhere with something else and just grabs her and throws her up against the fucking wall. Because you're used to those like look back scares, or she's gonna look back, see the nun there, and look forward, and it's gonna scare her right there. Nah, fucking came from the side. Didn't even fucking see it coming. It was
From the
crazy.
side. Now,
Yeah.
you said, I'm so sorry. I was trying
Oh,
to make sure that I heard properly.
why is it
But
going back?
the um,
Go ahead.
s- Sister Irene is trying, no, it must be somebody else, is trying to keep two people
The
separated.
nun is keeping Sister Irene and Father Burke. So whenever I say the nun, I'm talking specifically about Valak, the demon, the nun.
Valak, Valak. Okay, I wrote
Yes.
Varric, and I was like, that's not right. Okay,
Valak. Valak.
okay, Valak the demon. Quick question: has Lorraine Warren ever said if that's the actual name of the demon?
Correct. Yes.
Oh, that is so. The movies are using the actual name.
Correct. Yep. And that isn't it. You can look it up. Valak is an actual name of the demon, and the demon that is using Annabelle as a conduit. I have his name. I just don't have it memorized. Is another actual demon from the
Okay,
Bible.
I wasn't sure if she was going to change the name in order to like keep people from attempting to summoning or anything like from her perspective. Again,
True. True.
I'm I'm treating this as real because these people are treating this as real, and I want to just like say that early.
Yeah.
Okay, so Father Burke is trying to keep Sister Irene, sorry, Valak the demon is trying to keep Sister Irene and Father Burke away from each other, but I thought Sister Irene was dead.
No, the nun that killed herself was not Sister Irene. She was the last nun still living in the abbey. That nun that killed
Oh,
herself is the reason why Father Burke and Sister Irene are there to investigate to see what the hell's going on at this abbey that nuns are killing themselves.
got it. Okay, so and this is where the story has a plot hole because the nuns have all killed themselves, but there's still nuns there.
Correct. Exactly. So you see
Cool.
all these nuns around Sister Irene who are keeping her busy, giving her interviews, showing her that like they have a nun that's praying. I think that they have to do like I think it's like 5 hours, 5 to 6 hours of constant prayer, and then another nun sits down and starts praying, and then that nun's allowed to get up and walk away. So they have 24/7 prayer going because of the demonic circle that's in the basement of the abbey that the demon was coming out of. to
That
keep it
makes
safe.
sense. That sounds extremely Catholic to me.
Yep.
And not that there's a huge difference between Lutherans and Catholics, but like the whole, we found a gateway to hell. We absolutely are going to be keeping 24-hour prayer watch over this. Like, yes,
Mm-hmm.
that sounds very Catholic.
So
Okay.
there's a lot of stuff that goes on as they're out there burying that one nun. To take a couple steps back here, Father Burke actually points out the whole back in those days, a lot of people would get buried alive, and they had the bell toll,
The little chimes, yeah.
and so because she sees that, she wonders what it is. So whenever he gets buried alive, that's how she ends up finding him, is because of the bell. Because he starts ring. Yeah, he gets buried alive, which is what you see there in that top right scene. Yeah, he goes out into the. So the nun, or Valak, as most demons in lore and stuff like that do, is they prey on a way to break you mentally. If they can break you mentally, then to get your mental and physical pain to stop, a lot of people will then give in, and then once they give in, that's when the demon can take host. That's the entire point. The demon wants your soul from start to finish. That's their entire goal. So they want to break you any way they can. Father Burke accidentally had a child die during an exorcism that he was performing.
Oh, shit.
Instead of the demon leaving, the demon just chose to kill itself and the child.
Holy shit. Okay.
So Valak uses that to lead Father Burke all around this fucking abbey.
Because he feels extreme guilt.
Correct. And so it leads him out to the graveyard, to where then he gets pushed into a grave, and immediately all of a sudden he's just fucking buried underground. So he's ringing that bell. Whenever she comes out, because she hears this fucking bell ringing, she's looking around. Valak has all the fucking bells ringing. So that way she can't figure out exactly which one is his grave. And while that's happening and she's trying to figure out where he's at, what we see up there in that top right is going on, where she's fucking grabbing him by the face and trying to strangle him and shit. And he's trying to get the fuck out and screaming for Sister Irene. Luckily, Sister Irene finds him and gets him out, but it takes a little while because fucking Valak is fucking around. So
and I was seeing a plot hole of like, he's gonna be the newest grave with the disturbed earth, but at the same time, like, a demon's involved, so like the earth probably doesn't look super disturbed.
No, nope, not even close. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
Yep. Once again, Hollywood. So
yeah, no, I'm trying to roll with it. Like, I got shit going on in the back of my head that I'm just setting aside.
Magic. Anyways, so as I said, so Father Burke had that situation going on, so she ends up getting him out, and then they go back to their lodging, whatever, because they still got to fucking figure shit out. So he starts trying to study up on potentially a tale on what this demon is. So one, he can learn the name, and two, kind of have dominion over it, blah 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 blah. So he's trying to do that study while she's still interviewing the nuns. So she's going around, she's interviewing these nuns, talking to these nuns. They end up getting into this prayer circle, which was a fucking badass scene, which once again, as I said early on, wasn't able to get the good shit. Later on, there'll be even better shit. But this scene was badass because it's like the nuns are all sitting there praying and she's praying. And like it goes from a top-down view, and all of a sudden you hear this roar and all the nuns just go flying. Some of them hit the wall and die instantly. Some of them land into certain places, but she's still there. And the white dress in the center. And then all of a sudden, the back of her dress just gets ripped open. And then it's like, she's getting fucking whipped, one whip at a time. And it's making a pentagram on her back left shoulder as she's just sitting there. And she's trying to not stop praying. So she's praying the entire time this is happening and trying not to stop praying because of how scared she is that all the other nuns, like, someone has to be praying 24/7. All these other nuns are fucked up now. So nobody's praying besides her. So she's trying to keep the prayer going, and it's making this fucking pentagram on her back with these fucking scratches. Until Father Burke finally busts open the door, and then they start that's where the realization happened, because he comes in, and she's like I've been in here praying with all the other nuns. And Father Burke's like, what other nuns? And she looks around, like, all the nuns are gone, all the bodies that she saw were gone, blah 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 blah, but the one nun that was there originally, that was dead, even in her vision underneath the blanket, like, she could see like she was newly dead. And like she had like holes in her hands, like Jesus putting on the cross.
The stigmata.
Yep, exactly. So she was dead, and whenever she goes over there and grabs the cover and pulls it back, the same nun is there, but she's like all skeletal. You can't tell like any like facial, no nothing. So it's like that nun's been dead for a long time. But this entire time she thought she was talking to actual nuns, just showing how powerful Valak is right now, and the seal hasn't even been broken yet.
Okay, so that's I'm gonna guess that's kind of what you're getting at here is they show up and start interviewing nuns. There aren't any nuns there.
There are
Like
none.
these are just tools that Valak is using to distract
The abbess
them
is dead. Like, she's not even alive. The person that was talking to them from the get-go is dead.
is dead.
Yep. There's literally
Okay.
no one left alive in this fucking thing. So now they're like, all right, oh shit, we gotta
So
fucking get
they
shit
haven't been
going.
praying 24/7 over this thing. There's
No.
been at this point God knows how long
Yep.
where no one has been.
So it's
Okay.
just been storing up and storing up all this, demonic energy, blah 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 blah. And as Frenchie kind of pointed out, it looks like this is a lot more of keeping the evil in versus keeping evil out. So now it's just held into this fucking abbey where it can't leave, and once it breaks the seal, then it can finally fucking go. And it's trying to, do everything it can. And one of the things it needs to do is get rid of the relic, the blood of Christ, so that way that can't be used to plug up the seal again.
That's interesting, especially the bit about the pentagram, because the pentagram is viewed from the Christian church as being a sign of evil, but from the pagan church as being a sign against evil.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very interesting. It's very interesting.
Yep,
Continue.
exactly.
Like it's a very Christian view of this particular like potential activity.
Yep.
It's very narrowed to the Christian view as the only view.
And you will see that throughout the entire series. So,
Okay. Okay.
okay, so moving on. So we have two different scenes here. Both of them that I like and I thought I wanted to put in here. One on the right, we have the actual relic, the blood of Christ. And as you can see, there's a little cross in that bowl, and in that cross is filled up with the actual blood of Christ. So in the movie, or in the beginning of the movie, whenever they closed it up, the preacher actually has that, and he opens the top of it and throws a couple of drops of the blood on the seal, and it shuts it instantly, and sucks Valak right back down. Before Valak was through forming, he was kind of forming and trying to get out of the hole whenever they came in.
So Valak is male as a representation, or
As
do
a
we put genders
representation, Valen
on?
is a male. Valak is a male.
Okay. Okay.
And the reason why I say, well, I mean, I guess that's probably more just me doing it just from the looks of Valak, the demon itself. I guess
Hmm.
technically, realistically, I don't know whether or not demons are considered male or female because, that could range. Who fucking knows? It could be a female. But for the most of the movie, it takes place as a female being the nun.
Well, I wasn't sorry. I was trying to ask whether or not they had gendered the demon or
Right.
not. And it sounds like it kind of exists in a non-gendered space because it
Yes.
represents occasionally as male, it represents occasionally in a female body, like what we would recognize as a female body, and therefore like Valak is ungendered. Valak
Yeah,
is a
sure.
demon.
That's the best way to
Gender
do it.
doesn't matter.
Most of the time, whenever Valak is addressed, it's just Valak, and then obviously the demonic names that go along with it, like the Deceiver, the Defiler, the Marquis of Snakes, blah 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 blah. Yeah, that whole deal.
Interesting.
Yep.
Okay.
So to get to where the actual door is, or I'm not the door, but the seal is, there's this big wooden door that has that on it, which I can't read because I don't know how to fucking read that. But it translates to God ends here, and that's to get to the seal where Valak was summoned. And then we also have the relic, which is in a completely different place. So there's this like stone door, and that's what that key was for. You put the key into the stone door, unlock it, and it opens up, and then there's the blood of Christ. And that's
Okay.
what the whole point of what they're trying to get to. So we're kind of going through this movie a little fast, but I didn't think it was going to be too much really build up without being able to actually watch the scene because it's just like a lot of scary shit here, scary shit there.
Yeah.
So now we move on to where I think, yes, our first vid. Yes. Okay, so we're all keyed up here. So this is the actual final confrontation. Yes, we're already at the end of this movie. This is the final confrontation. Father Burke, Sister Irene, and Frenchie have obtained the blood of Christ, and we're going to try to stop it. Valak has gotten in the way. A couple of different things that have happened here, which were pretty cool. And this kind of ties into one of my favorite horror game series. But there's this scene where Sister Irene goes into this room, and she is kind of taken by Valak a little bit, where like she starts screaming, the door closes, Frenchie finally breaks his way in there. When he does, he sees like 40 nuns. They're all in the white, and they all have a blood bag over their head, so there's just blood all over the front, and they're just steel, but they all like kind of like crick and break and stuff whenever he walks through them. And it reminds me, and you're not going to get this too much until we potentially ever do a series on this, but in my favorite horror video game, Silent Hill, there's the
Mm-hmm.
movies and stuff about that. That's how the nurses are too. The nurses are like very like stuck, And what's really cool about that movie when they made that is that they actually hired actual ballerinas to be the nurses, and they
Mm-hmm.
had them do like their dances and their moves and stuff like that, walking, and then they just played it in reverse to have like
Oh
those
yeah, you
awkward
told me about
movements
that.
and shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So the nuns are kind of like that without all the awkward movements, where they're all stuck there. And whenever he ends up finding what he believes to be, well, obviously is Irene, because she's like levitating in the air a little bit, but kind of like the Michael Jackson smooth criminal lean, if you will, where her feet are still on the ground, and
Yeah.
she's just
Mm-hmm.
hovering over with the blood of Christ dangling down in the middle of a pentagram. And so he goes over there to like help her out, and then all of a sudden, fucking uh, she like starts to move, and Valak has taken over her at this point because she was in the
Oh
middle of a
no.
summoning circle, so he was able to get into her body, and so she grabs Frenchie and puts him up against the wall, and says, "Nothing but a poor little Frenchman. I guess tomorrow the village will be missing its idiot." And then
Damn.
Frenchie, I can't remember what he says back to her. It's something smart aleck or whatever. But he had grabbed the blood of Christ and got a little bit on his hand, and then put it on Sister Irene's face, which immediately pushed Valak out of her. So then Sister Irene goes to take off running, and then the nun grabs Frenchie, and then Sister Irene turns around. The nun screams at Sister Irene, pushing her into this water place where we're at now, which is right above the actual seal. And she is holding Frenchie and chokes him out, and then drops him. And then she goes into here. Father Burt shows up, and that boy that accidentally died during his exorcism jumps on his back, and then like opens his mouth, and a snake comes out, goes around Father Burke's neck, and then bites him in his eye. He loses complete and total sight in his left eye. Grabs the snake off, throws it off, and then you're gonna kind of see everything else that happens here.
Brilliant. Let's
Okay,
go.
here we go.
Amazing acting, keeping your eyes open through that experience. Hmm.
In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit! It's your shadow stand!
Okay, so she's drowning her. Oh, maybe don't give the demon the blood of Christ. That seems like the wrong call. Aha! Okay, so she broke it out. How? I take it the seal is at the bottom of this water feature.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
So
setting
in the scene, which I'll
Mhm.
come back to here a little bit. So you were wondering like how she got it out. Whenever she first grabs it down, you actually see, and obviously you didn't see the other parts of the movie, but you actually see her grab where the tip of it is. That's where they were opening it up to get blood out. She puts it right up to her mouth. So she's drinking the blood out right there. Then she smashes it as she's
Oh.
giving it up to her to make her wonder where the fucking blood went. Because if it was just sucked out, then obviously, the demon might be smart enough to know, like, God, she's just got it in her fucking mouth. But now the demon grabbing it and seeing the fucking hole has no idea where the fuck the cross is. So she's just got it, hold it in her mouth right now, just waiting. And that's when she comes up, does that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Now, because Hollywood loves heterosexual relationships, is there something like, is there tension between Sister Irene and Father Burke, even though it's
no,
forbidden?
but there is between technically them two. Like, Frenchie's kind of your, like, man whore, if you will. Like, even when they first meet him, he's all like, oh God, another woman and her pissed off father for something that I did last night, type deal.
Okay.
And really, we don't need to watch this part, but I figured so you can kind of get a sense of Frenchie's character a little bit too. We'll finish it off because he cracks a joke about that right here.
Okay.
Yeah,
Father Burke's over there
His eyes all
figuring out
fucked
his
up.
life. Yeah.
You don't mind it. It's called the kiss of life. It's just called that way. It's just won't stop with you ever. Maurice.
Thank you for saving my life, Maurice.
Welcome.
So yeah, obviously we saw that happen. Good trumps evil. Good guys win in the end, right? Well, we're wrong. Good guys don't win in the end, and the reason why is because when she actually did it, it goes back and shows she actually put a snake that went inside Frenchie's body, which was Valak himself. So he made a copy of himself to go inside Frenchie's body, and then 20 years later, he becomes possessed, which is one of the Warren's first cases. And on his left shoulder, left shoulder is Ed's hand, and on his right shoulder is Lorraine's hand. And that is the first time Valak comes into touch with the actual Warrens.
So what you're telling me is if Frenchie had just, like, gone in with the kiss of life with a little bit of tongue, it would have been fine. Because she had all kinds of blood of Christ in her mouth, all over her lips. But, like, if he just tried in that moment, like, I'm gonna go for it and see if I can talk her out of this nun life, would have been fine.
Would have been fine.
All right, Frenchie, the moment to be a man whore, you chose not to do it, and that's why all this happened to you.
Oh, and that ends it for our nun episode. So, before we move forward, obviously it's our Annabelle scene. I like our little Annabelle scene here. But, Kelsey, questions. Mm-hmm. That's the nun. Questions. Anything you want to talk about?
The bulk of the questions that I have are in relation of, like, hey, like, biblically questionable. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't seem fair to, like, challenge you on because you are not a Bible expert. No. I am not a Bible expert, and whoever made this, I'm getting a vibe, is not a Bible expert.
Probably not.
Just cause I have reasons to believe that. Okay, so Valak isn't dead. Then what was sent back?
So like, basically, the way that I read on like how Valak quote unquote didn't die. And so basically what they put is it's kind of like a demon putting a younger version of itself into a different host. So like its old host is basically what died versus actual Valak dying. Like at that point, Frenchie was the new host.
Okay, so it's using Horcrux logic.
Kinda, yeah. So now that it has that as a host, it didn't matter if the old host died because, Valak is going to now live on to where now it's going to get to the point where it fucking gets into Ed and Lorraine's world, and we'll see a pretty gruesome scene-ish, if you will, about that. So,
okay, so Valak has been plaguing at this point because the nun. Oh wait, the nun is the first. So, from a story chronology, so Valak isn't actually plaguing Lorraine Warren until she encounters Frenchie as an adult.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay. When do they encounter Frenchie as an adult?
20 years
later.
What
movie?
They encounter, you don't actually see that in the movies. It's just a short little, like, skit of that in a movie where like Ed and them are, because they would go do college classes or not even college classes, but it would be like if people feel like they're having like demonic possessions or ghosts are in their house, they would give these courses at these schools that would allow them to rent out a room where they would talk about this is what that looks like, oppression, possession, blah 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 blah. This is how that works, and these are signs that you need to be looking out for. Here are churches that are in your local area that you can go to get help. This is what you can ask them for. They would put on classes like that, and in one of the classes, Ed shows this of Frenchie because it's like. He even says in it, he's all like, this man didn't finish high school, but whenever I met him, spoke the best Latin I've ever heard and sometimes would speak it backwards. He's all like, and then this scene, it shows where like he's sitting up and like his shirt rides up and you see an upside down cross start to form inside of his body, bulging out. And then Lorraine touches him, and whenever she does, he looks at her and then grabs her hand, and it like sends her into one of her episodes, if you will, being a medium, she can see beyond the veil, and that's when Valak makes its first, connection.
Appearance in her life. Yeah. Okay.
Connection with Lorraine. Which, that's what sets Ed on this whole, like, I'm worried about Lorraine, because he even says it, I think, in the first Conjuring, he tells the father of the kids, he goes, she locked herself away for 3 days and wouldn't talk, wouldn't do da-da-da-da-da-da. And then she finally tells Ed what happened, which leads into the Conjuring 2, which I'm not going to spoil here. So,
now, this is, like, the Carta Monastery is real. It actually exists. Does anyone live there now? Do you know?
I do not know. I do not know if it's abandoned at this point, if it's still going. Not 100% sure on that one.
I've got a Wikipedia up, but I can't read it all while we're on camera. Okay.
Gotcha.
So, when you mention the Valak chose a host, and then Valak put a younger version of itself in a new host, in this case Frenchie, and then the old host dies. That the implication there is that one of a nun at some point gave herself over to Valak.
Yes.
Okay. And then was just survived without aging due to its influence.
Oh, I don't know if necessarily that's how they look at it. I think it's more of the nun itself is just a manifestation of Valak. That it's just able to draw its power because you have a direct opening to hell right underneath that was specifically used and designed to summon Valak. That's the part that I fucking forgot to fucking say, and I had it up. That's why the war comes into play. It was sealed until the war happened, and one of the bombs shook the ground that it ended up breaking the seal open again, but not fully, which is how the evil was able to seep through in the first place. That's the part that I fucking forgot. There we go. So hopefully that helps with a little bit more, quote-unquote, Hollywood magical sense here on how
I was going to say, that's Hollywood magic sense. Yes. The movies, as even with what we just saw, seems deeply respectful of Christian tradition, but at the same time, the argument, 2 drops of the blood of Christ can seal this thing for centuries, or however long, and then a bomb can break the ground, and the ground breaking is enough to undo the blood of Christ. That seems very questionable from a Christian tradition standpoint.
For sure.
It's one of those things that when you start poking holes, especially in something that is as Swiss cheese as Christian history, which if you don't think that is Swiss cheese, go educate yourself. Which I say with nothing but respect and love. But as Swiss cheesy as Christian history, that creates you've got Swiss cheese on top of Swiss cheese. It's just holes on top of holes. You've got a sponge of varying levels of able to hold water. So okay, interesting. Got it.
Yep.
I have no additional questions. Is there anything you think I should have asked?
Not really. I mean, I think you kind of covered it. I mean, these characters do not show up again. Besides the nun, and then obviously Frenchie for that short little time. So this is the end of Father Bert. This is the end of Sister Irene. So you don't have to worry about them. None of them come close. Valak themselves isn't even part of the Annabelle series. So we're going to go away from Valak here for a little bit, and there's going to be another demon that's in play, and then we go to the Conjuring. Obviously, then technically we have 2 demons at play at that point, because it's the one that uses Annabelle as a conduit, and then the one that is Valak and haunting the Warrens. So
has been following Irene for a long or Lorraine, for a long time. Yeah,
correct. But yeah,
okay.
So if that's it, then we're able to end and move on to the Annabelle.
Yeah. I know you're trying to get me to the end. I'm just like thinking
No,
through
you're
and
good.
making
You're
sure I
good.
don't have any other questions. But that's going to do it for our class on the Nun in the Conjuring Universe. If you enjoyed this content, like, subscribe, turn on notifications, check out our merch links, check out our Twitter links, check out our Twitch links. Go do all of those things. Share
All of
us
them.
to your friends. This is part of our October content. We try to do a ton for October. It's our anniversary month, and this is a big part of that. So please come and interact with us in the comments below. If you think of anything that I should have asked but didn't, throw it in there because Chris and I will answer.
Yeah.
And if you think any of what I said from a Christian perspective is wrong, like, hey, the Bible says X, let's have that chat as well. And we will talk to you in the next class of Dead Funny University. Bye, friends.